He had always ignored janitors, but one day he witnessed something that made him realize they weren't as different from him as he thought. Before we begin, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Elias Thorne, CEO of Thorne Technologies, considered his office a sanctuary. It was a minimalist fortress of glass and polished steel, a testament to his own cold, unyielding efficiency. His work ethic was the stuff of corporate legend, a relentless engine that drove the company to unimaginable heights. He was a man who lived by the numbers, for whom every quarter was a new battle to be won, every spreadsheet a battlefield. The city skyline, a glittering expanse of ambition and power, was his only companion on nights like this, when the rest of the world had gone home. It was well past 11 p.m., and the sprawling Thorne Technologies headquarters was a ghost town. The air conditioning hummed with a low, mechanical purr, the only sound to break the profound silence. Elias was in the final throes of reviewing a Q3 report, a thick document filled with projections and metrics. He felt a familiar, almost comfortable, exhaustion settling in. He was about to leave, to retreat to his equally stark penthouse apartment, when a flicker of light caught his eye. It was coming from the main lobby, a space usually plunged into darkness at this hour. A flicker of annoyance stirred within him. The cleaning crew was supposed to be efficient and discreet. They were a necessary, but often invisible, part of the company's ecosystem. A stray light meant a potential security risk, a lapse in the meticulous order he demanded. He strode down the silent hallway, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. As he approached the lobby, the low murmur of voices reached him. Not the loud, bustling chatter of a day's work, but something softer, more intimate. He peered around the corner, and the sight stopped him dead in his tracks. On the pristine, white floor, under the glow of a single task lamp, sat a woman. Her name tag, pinned to a simple navy blue uniform, read Amara. She had her back to him, but the warmth of her presence was palpable. Her hair, a cascade of dark, rich curls, was pulled back in a neat bun. Next to her sat a little girl, no older than 5, her small frame dwarfed by the cavernous lobby. Amara was holding a book, its brightly colored cover a stark contrast to the muted tones of the room. "Look, Maya," Amara whispered, her voice a gentle melody that seemed to fill the vast space with life. "This is a B. It's for brave. You are so brave for learning this big new letter." The little girl, Maya, traced the letter with a chubby finger, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Brave," she repeated, her voice a tiny, earnest echo. Elias, for the first time in a very long time, felt a pang of something other than ambition or fatigue. He felt curiosity. He had seen the cleaning crew before, of course. They moved through the building like shadows, their work a seamless transition from one day to the next. He had never considered them as individuals with lives, with children, with hopes. He had never seen this side of the building, the human side. The side that existed after the spreadsheets were closed and the power suits were gone. He watched them for a few more moments, a silent, unblinking observer. Amara's smile was wide and genuine, a beacon of light in the sterile environment. It wasn't a smile for a camera or a client. It was the pure, unfiltered joy of a mother teaching her daughter. The scene was so utterly out of place, so beautifully, messily human, that it felt like a dream. Finally, he felt he had intruded enough. He backed away quietly, his polished shoes making no sound on the carpeted hallway. He returned to his office, but the Q3 report no longer held his attention. His mind replayed the scene in the lobby. He found himself picturing the worn-out cover of the children's book, the way Amara's fingers gently guided Maya's, the soft light illuminating their faces. Elias Thorne had built his empire on logic and foresight. He prided himself on his ability to predict market trends and outmaneuver competitors. But this was an anomaly, a variable he couldn't quantify, a feeling he couldn't name. He was a man who dealt in billions, yet he was captivated by a single, quiet moment of a mother teaching her daughter to read. It was an image that refused to be dismissed, a small, vibrant seed of life planted in the sterile, corporate soil of his world. As he finally left the building, the lobby was once again dark. The cleaning crew had finished their work and gone home. But the memory of the light, the book, and the soft melody of Amara's voice lingered. Elias found himself walking to his car with a new, unfamiliar heaviness in his chest, a sense of wonder that felt foreign and yet strangely compelling. He drove home not thinking of profits or projections, but of a young girl learning her letters and a mother's gentle love. The world, he realized with a jolt, was far bigger than his office, and there were stories unfolding right under his nose that he had been too blind to see. This late-night encounter was more than just a moment. It was a crack in his perfectly constructed world, and he had a feeling it was just the beginning. The next evening, Elias Thorne's routine was, for the first time in his memory, subtly altered. He had planned to leave the office at his usual time, a decision dictated by his rigorous schedule. Yet, as the clock on his wall ticked past 8 p.m., he found himself unable to focus. The numbers on his screen blurred, and the familiar rhythm of his work felt disjointed. His mind kept drifting back to the previous night's scene in the lobby. The soft light, the earnest face of the little girl, Maya, and the gentle, melodic voice of her mother, Amara. He was a man who valued predictability and control. The unexpected sight of a mother and daughter sharing a quiet moment in his sterile, corporate temple had introduced a variable he couldn't process. It was a beautiful, inexplicable chaos in a world he had meticulously organized. He told himself he was staying late to review the Q3 market projections one more time. But in truth, he was waiting for the building to empty, for the silence to return, and for the possibility of catching another glimpse of the human side of his empire. Around 10:30 p.m., the last of the late-night analysts finally left, their footsteps fading down the hallway. Elias waited another 20 minutes, ensuring the coast was clear, before he made his way out of his office. He didn't head for the elevator. Instead, he found himself drawn back to the lobby. As he approached, he saw the same task lamp casting its intimate circle of light on the marble floor. And there they were again, Amara and Maya. This time, the scene was different, yet just as captivating. Maya wasn't tracing letters anymore. She was sounding out words from a new book, one that looked just as loved and worn as the last. Cat, she said, her small voice a mixture of intense concentration and triumphant glee. Amara's smile was as radiant as the night before. "That's right, my little genius," she praised, and clapped her hands softly, a sound that seemed to chase away the sterile coldness of the room. Elias watched from behind a large, decorative pillar, a silent observer of their nightly ritual. He noticed the details he had missed the previous night. The careful way Amara held the book, her thumb marking the spot where Maya should read. The patient, almost infinite patience she possessed as Maya struggled with a new word, gently correcting her without a hint of frustration. He saw the pride in Amara's eyes with every small victory Maya achieved. This wasn't a lesson. It was a moment of deep connection, a testament to a mother's love and determination. It was a sanctuary they had created for themselves in the middle of a world that didn't seem to have a place for them. Elias, who had built a life on ambition and power, was witnessing a different kind of strength, a far more profound one. Amara wasn't just teaching her daughter to read. She was building a foundation of confidence, of knowledge, of love. He found himself wondering about their story. Why here? Why late at night, on the cold floor of a corporate lobby? He saw the meticulous care Amara took to make sure Maya understood each word. It wasn't just about reading. It was about giving her daughter the tools to navigate a world that could be unforgiving. Elias, for all his billions, had never been taught that kind of fundamental lesson. He had been taught to conquer, to win, to dominate. He had never been shown the quiet, gentle power of nurturing another human being. Elias's curiosity was a powerful, driving force. He used it to dissect market trends and analyze competitor strategies. But this was a new kind of curiosity, one that felt more personal, more human. It was an urge to understand, not to conquer. He saw the worn-out books and the simple uniforms and the late hours and felt a sense of unease. A woman with such profound dedication, such obvious intelligence, shouldn't have to be teaching her daughter on a lobby floor after a long day of cleaning. The scene, so innocent and beautiful on the surface, suddenly held a deeper, more unsettling layer for Elias. He was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. He had the power to change things, to influence lives on a massive scale. Yet, he was standing in the dark, watching a woman give her daughter the most valuable gift a parent could, all while working a job that barely allowed her the time to do so. The juxtaposition was jarring. It was a stark reminder of the vast, unseen worlds that existed within the walls of his own building. He watched them for what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a few minutes. He saw Maya sound out another word, this time with a little more confidence. "Dog," she exclaimed, her face lighting up. Amara kissed her daughter's forehead, a simple gesture filled with a universe of love. Elias felt a lump form in his throat. It was an unfamiliar sensation, a foreign emotion that he couldn't readily identify. He backed away, his retreat more a flight than a simple departure. He returned to his office, his sanctuary, but it no longer felt the same. The polished glass and steel seemed to mock him, a cold and hollow shell. He sat in his expensive leather chair, the Q3 projections forgotten. His mind was filled with images of a child's small hand tracing letters and a mother's quiet, powerful love. The next morning, he would be Elias Thorne, billionaire CEO, once again. He would command a vast empire and make decisions that would affect thousands of lives. But tonight, he was just a man who had seen something profoundly real and was, for the first time, questioning the reality he had built for himself. The memory of Amara and Maya was no longer just an observation. It was a quiet, persistent whisper in his mind, urging him to look deeper, to see the people behind the numbers, and to understand the stories that lay hidden in plain sight. The days that followed were a blur of uncharacteristic distraction for Elias Thorne. The Q3 reports, once his sole obsession, now seemed like little more than a collection of meaningless digits. He was haunted by the image of Amara and her daughter Maya. The memory of their quiet lessons on the cold marble floor had become an emotional anchor, pulling him away from the familiar shores of his corporate world and into a sea of unfamiliar questions. He had built his life on knowing everything about his business, every angle, every metric, every potential risk. But about Amara, he knew nothing beyond her name tag. This lack of information felt like a chasm. It was a problem he couldn't ignore, a variable he had to quantify. Driven by a curiosity that felt more personal than professional, Elias made a decision that was completely out of character. He decided to discreetly look into Amara's employee file. This wasn't a routine performance review. It was a deep dive into the life of an individual he had only observed from a distance. He accessed the company's secure human resources database, a fortress of confidential information. He typed in her name, Amara Johnson. The file loaded, and he began to read. He expected to see a standard record, employment history, a list of duties, a predictable trajectory. What he found instead was a shocking and deeply moving narrative that unfolded on his screen. The first page detailed her education. Elias's breath hitched. Amara Johnson wasn't just a janitor. She had a master's degree in early childhood education from a prestigious university. Her academic record was stellar, filled with glowing recommendations from professors who spoke of her brilliant mind and her profound passion for teaching. A sense of disbelief washed over Elias. He reread the line, a mental double-take that didn't change the fact. This brilliant woman was scrubbing floors in his building, a role so far removed from her potential it felt like a cosmic injustice. He continued to scroll, each line of text a new revelation. He learned about her professional past, a brief but impactful career as a lead educator at a highly respected preschool. The file was a testament to a life dedicated to shaping young minds, a life that had been put on hold. The next section of the file was marked personal notes and contained the tragic explanation for her sudden change in career. Elias's heart sank as he read. 2 years prior, Amara and her husband, a promising architect, had been involved in a severe car accident. He hadn't survived. Amara had, but she was left with extensive injuries and more cripplingly, insurmountable medical debt. The file detailed how her husband's life insurance had been denied on a technicality, leaving her with the full burden of hospital bills, mortgage payments, and the sole responsibility of raising their daughter, Maya. Elias sat back in his chair, the glow of the monitor illuminating a face etched with a mix of shock, anger, and a deep, uncharacteristic sadness. The numbers on his screen had suddenly taken on a human face. The cold, hard reality of Amara's life hit him with the force of a physical blow. He thought of Maya, tracing letters on the lobby floor, and realized it wasn't just an adorable nightly ritual. It was an act of a desperate, loving mother refusing to let her daughter's future be limited by their circumstances. This woman, with her gentle voice and boundless patience, was a hero in her own quiet way. She was battling a system that had failed her, a tragic past that had tried to break her, and she was doing it with a smile, a children's book, and a fierce, unyielding love for her daughter. The revelation hit Elias hard. This brilliant, resilient woman was hiding in plain sight, forced by circumstance into a role far below her potential. The injustice of it all infuriated him. He saw the waste of talent, the crushing of a dream, and he felt a responsibility he had never anticipated. Elias had always seen himself as a disruptor, a man who changed industries. But this was different. This wasn't about the market or technology. It was about a person. Amara's story was a secret he had stumbled upon, a hidden truth that changed everything. It was a testament to the fact that there were entire worlds of struggle and strength right within the walls of his own company, worlds he had been too self-absorbed to see. He looked out his window at the city skyline, a glittering expanse of ambition and power. For the first time, he saw it not as his empire, but as a place filled with millions of stories like Amara's. He realized that his power wasn't just about building a successful company. It was about seeing the people who made it run, the people who were the silent engines of the machine. The secret he had discovered about Amara wasn't just about her. It was about him, about the kind of man he was, and the kind of man he wanted to be. He had the ability to change her life, to right a small piece of the injustice that had been dealt to her. He knew then that his path was clear. He couldn't just stand by and watch this quiet tragedy unfold. He couldn't go back to his spreadsheets and his market projections as if nothing had happened. He had seen the truth, and now he had to act on it. The late-night encounters in the lobby, the quiet curiosity that had led him to this moment, were no longer just a distraction. They were a call to action. A call to use his power not for profit, but for people. The next time he saw Amara, it wouldn't be as a silent observer. It would be as a man who had seen her for who she truly was, a brilliant educator, a loving mother, and a person worthy of a future she had been unjustly denied. The revelation of Amara's past had fundamentally shifted Elias Thorne's perspective. The sterile, black-and-white world of corporate numbers had been colored in with the rich, complex hues of a human story. The next evening, he felt a pull back to the lobby, but this time it wasn't a quiet curiosity. It was a firm resolve. He wasn't going to be a passive observer anymore. He was going to act. The knowledge he now possessed was a weight on his shoulders, a secret he couldn't keep. He found them in their usual spot, bathed in the soft glow of the task lamp. Maya was drawing pictures on the back of a discarded memo pad, her little tongue sticking out in concentration. Amara was reading a book, a worn copy of a classic novel, clearly taking a rare moment for herself while her daughter was occupied. Her expression, even in repose, held a weary grace, a testament to her quiet strength. Elias walked into the lobby, his presence a jarring note in their peaceful world. The sound of his expensive leather shoes on the marble floor was a stark contrast to the quiet intimacy of their space. Amara looked up, and a flicker of fear, and was that recognition, crossed her face. He was not just the CEO, the man on the company posters. He was the man she had seen lingering in the shadows the past 2 nights. "Good evening, Amara," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. He had rehearsed this moment, but the words felt clumsy and inadequate. "I just wanted to say, I've seen you and your daughter here the past few nights. What you're doing, it's incredible." Amara's posture stiffened. She instinctively moved to shield Maya, a primal, protective gesture. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice tight with a mixture of deference and suspicion. "We were just finishing up." "Please don't stop on my account," he replied, taking a few steps closer but keeping a respectful distance. He saw her eyes flick nervously between him and Maya, and he knew he had to tread carefully. He couldn't just blurt out what he knew. He had to earn her trust. "I have a personal interest in education," he began, a half-truth he hoped she would accept. "I couldn't help but notice how dedicated you are to your daughter's learning." Amara relaxed slightly, but her guard was still up. "It's important to me that she gets a good start," she explained, a touch of defiance in her tone. "With our schedule, it's the only time we have." Elias nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I understand. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you. I looked at your employee file." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. The surprise on Amara's face was profound. Her eyes widened, a vulnerability she couldn't hide breaking through her carefully constructed walls. "How did you know?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, a mixture of bewilderment and a dawning understanding. Elias chose his words carefully, wanting to be honest but not intrusive. "I saw you in Maya. I saw your passion. It seemed out of place. So I looked deeper. I discovered your master's degree. I saw your past." A long silence followed, punctuated only by the soft rustle of Maya's drawing. Amara looked down at her hands, her shoulders slumping just a fraction. The exhaustion he had only guessed at was now plain to see. The burden she had been carrying, The secret she had kept locked away was out in the open. "I don't know what to say," she finally managed, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want pity." "It's not pity," Elias said, his voice firm and sincere. "It's respect and admiration. What you've been through, the medical debt, the loss of your husband, to still be here, teaching your daughter with such joy and love, it's nothing short of extraordinary." He watched as a single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. The wall she had built around herself was finally beginning to crumble. Elias took a seat on the floor, mirroring her position, a gesture that was more powerful than any words. He wasn't the CEO on his throne anymore. He was just a man, sitting on the same cold floor, sharing a moment with another human being. "I was a teacher," she began, the words coming out in a rush, as if a dam had broken. "It was my dream. We were building our lives, my husband and I. He was an architect, so full of ideas. Then the accident, the bills, the insurance company fought us every step of the way. I lost everything. I couldn't afford a lawyer, and I had to take this job. It was the only one that allowed me to bring Maya." She looked down at her daughter, her face a mask of profound love and sorrow. "I couldn't let her fall behind. I couldn't let my circumstances dictate her future. So we come here. It's the only quiet place we have." Elias listened, his gaze fixed on her. The story was even more heart-wrenching than the dry, clinical details in the employee file. He saw the resilience, the pain, the profound sense of loss. He saw a woman who had been knocked down by life and had refused to stay down. The fire of her spirit was not extinguished. It had simply been forced to burn a little more quietly. "Amara," he said, her name sounding natural on his tongue. "You are not just a janitor. You are a brilliant educator, a devoted mother, and one of the strongest people I have ever met. I'm sorry for what happened to you, and I'm sorry that it took me this long to see it." He stood up, his face set with a new resolve. "Your story ends here," he said, not as a statement of fact, but as a promise. "From now on, we're going to write a new one." The morning air in Elias Thorne's office felt different. It was no longer just a sterile atmosphere of ambition. It was charged with purpose. He had spent the night reviewing Amara's file, but this time, he wasn't just absorbing information. He was a strategist preparing for his most important meeting yet. He wasn't just going to offer her a job. He was going to offer her a new life. He called her name into his office, a place she had only ever known in her capacity as a cleaner. Amara arrived, dressed in her simple uniform, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. The contrast between her and the opulent surroundings was stark. The glass walls, the panoramic view of the city, the expensive minimalist furniture. It was a world away from the lobby floor where she taught her daughter. Her initial fear from the night before had been replaced by a cautious confusion. Elias had promised her a new story, but she couldn't fathom what that meant. Elias rose from his chair, a gesture that was both a sign of respect and an attempt to put her at ease. "Amara, please have a seat," he said, gesturing to a comfortable leather chair facing his desk. She sat on the edge of it, a natural posture of someone who felt out of place. "I've been thinking a lot since last night," Elias began, his voice calm and deliberate, "about what you told me, about your passion for education, and about the circumstances that led you here." He leaned forward, his gaze direct and sincere. "I believe that every company, especially one as successful as Thorne Technologies, has a responsibility to its people. And I've come to realize that we haven't been living up to that responsibility." Amara listened, her expression a mixture of skepticism and hope. She had learned long ago not to trust grand gestures. Life had taught her that promises could be as fragile as glass. "For some time, I've been considering a new initiative," Elias continued, his tone shifting from personal to professional, but with a clear emotional undertone. "A program to provide quality education and childcare for the children of all our employees, right here on campus. It would be a state-of-the-art facility, a place where parents can feel secure knowing their children are getting the best possible start in life." He paused, letting the idea sink in. Amara's eyes widened slightly. She thought of Maya, of the worn-out books, and of the cold lobby floor. The idea was a beacon of light in the darkness she had been navigating. "I want to make this a reality," Elias said, his voice gaining momentum. "But to do it, I need a director. Someone with a deep understanding of early childhood education. Someone who isn't just an administrator, but a true leader. Someone who understands the struggles of working parents, and most importantly, someone who has a profound love for teaching. He met her gaze, and the meaning of his words became crystal clear. Amara's mouth fell open slightly. You mean me? She stammered, the disbelief in her voice a raw, honest sound. Yes, Amara. I mean you, he confirmed, a small smile touching his lips. I'm not hiring a janitor. I'm hiring a director. I'm offering you the position of director of the Thorn Technologies Educational Initiative. The salary would be commensurate with your qualifications, enough to erase your debt and provide for Maya's future. The resources would be unlimited. You would have a team, a budget, and my complete support to build this program from the ground up. The offer hung in the air between them, a life-changing proposition that seemed too good to be true. Amara was speechless. The shock was so profound she felt a wave of dizziness. For so long, her life had been about survival, about scraping by, about putting her own dreams on an indefinite hold. Now here was a man, a billionaire CEO no less, offering her a chance to not only reclaim her life, but to help others as well. It was her dream, a vision she had once cherished before tragedy had intervened. Elias saw the whirlwind of emotions on her face, the shock, the fear, the burgeoning hope. I know this is a lot to take in, he said gently. But I've seen you in action, Amara. I've seen your dedication and your passion. I know you're the right person for this job. You're not just qualified on paper. You're qualified in your heart. You've been teaching your daughter with nothing but a few old books and a lobby floor. Imagine what you could do with unlimited resources. He stood up and walked over to his window, gazing out at the city he dominated. My company has always been about innovation, about creating the future. But what is the point of all that if we don't take care of the people who make it possible? This isn't just a business decision, Amara. It's a fundamental change in how we operate. And I need someone like you to lead it. Amara finally found her voice, though it was still a shaky whisper. Mr. Thorne, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, Elias said, turning back to face her. Just think about it. Think about the good you could do. Not just for your own daughter, but for every child of every employee who works here. You have a chance to build something incredible. A legacy. Something that will change this company, and maybe, just maybe, change the world a little bit too. He was giving her more than a job. He was giving her a purpose, a chance to heal, and a future. The secret he had discovered about her was not just an unfortunate detail from a personnel file. It was the key to unlocking her potential, and in doing so, unlocking the potential for a new, more compassionate kind of leadership for his company. The offer was life-changing, a second chance she never thought she'd get, and in that moment, sitting in the heart of Thorn Technologies, Amara began to believe that a new chapter could and would be written. Amara stared at the floor, the polished marble of Elias Thorne's office a cold, distant mirror of her life. The silence was heavy, filled with the echoes of his monumental offer. Her mind was a whirlwind of emotions, hope, disbelief, and a deep-seated fear. The billionaire CEO, a man who had been a distant, powerful figure just days ago, was now offering her not just a job, but her entire life back. It was a lifeline she had never expected, a dream she had long ago packed away in a dusty corner of her heart. Yet, she found herself hesitating. Mr. Thorne, she finally began, her voice a fragile whisper that seemed to get lost in the vastness of the room. I'm grateful. Truly. But She trailed off, unable to articulate the storm of doubt swirling inside her. Elias, who was still standing by the window, turned to face her. He had anticipated this. He had built his empire on understanding human nature, its greed, its ambition, its fear. Amara's hesitation wasn't a rejection. It was a symptom of a deeper wound. He could see it in her eyes, the weight of her past, the years of struggle, the learned caution of someone who had been knocked down and was afraid to get back up. You're afraid, he stated, not as a question, but as a simple, empathetic fact. You're afraid of what might happen, afraid of failing, afraid that this is a dream you'll wake up from. Amara nodded slowly, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. I'm just a janitor, Mr. Thorne, she said, the words heavy with the shame she had carried for years. I clean floors. I teach my daughter on the back of old memos. I don't lead initiatives. I don't run a department. The contrast between her reality and his proposal was a chasm she felt she could never cross. You're not just a janitor, Amara, Elias countered, his voice firm but gentle. He walked back to his desk and sat on the edge of it, leaning forward to close the distance between them. You're a brilliant educator with a master's degree. You're a mother who, against all odds, is giving her daughter the tools to succeed. You've been running your own personal initiative for years, with no budget and no resources, and you've been doing an incredible job. I saw it with my own eyes. He paused, letting his words sink in. He knew this wasn't about her qualifications. It was about her confidence. The trauma of her husband's death and the subsequent financial ruin had taken a toll on her spirit. It had taught her to play it safe, to survive, not to thrive. He had to convince her that it was okay to dream again. You said you were a teacher, Amara, he continued. That was your dream. What happened to it? The medical debt and the accident, they took a part of your life from you, but they didn't take your talent. They didn't take your passion. It's still there. I saw it when you were teaching Maya. That spark, that fire, it's what makes you the perfect person for this job. She shook her head, a self-deprecating smile on her face. It's been so long. I feel like I've forgotten everything. The world has moved on. I'm not a teacher anymore. I'm a cleaner. And I'm a billionaire CEO who used to be a programmer who couldn't afford a decent meal, Elias said, a flicker of his own past in his eyes. We all start somewhere, Amara. The world hasn't moved on from you. It's been waiting for you to come back to it. I'm not asking you to be the person you were before the accident. I'm asking you to be the person you are right now. A person with an incredible heart and an innate ability to teach. He saw the flicker of hope in her eyes, warring with the fear. It was a fragile thing, this hope, and he had to nurture it. He spoke about the program, painting a vivid picture of what it could be. A bright, colorful campus, filled with the laughter of children. A curriculum designed by her, for the good of all the employees' families. He told her that he wasn't just offering her a job. He was offering her the chance to build a legacy, to heal a part of her past by creating a future for others. I will give you all the resources you need to succeed, he promised, his tone resonating with the unshakable confidence of a man who is used to making things happen. A team of brilliant educators. A budget that will never be an issue. My full support. You won't be alone. We'll build this together. He saw the doubt on her face and added, This isn't a test, Amara. This is an opportunity. Not just for you, but for all of us. I believe in you. I saw your brilliance on a cold lobby floor with a worn-out book, and that is all the proof I need. He knew that for Amara, this was more than a career decision. It was an emotional leap of faith. She had to believe that she was worthy of this second chance, that her past wasn't a chain but a testament to her resilience. The fear of failure was a powerful enemy, but so was the longing for a life she thought she had lost forever. Elias had given her a choice, a chance to choose hope over fear, and he would wait patiently for her to make the bravest decision of her life. The same courage she had been teaching Maya was now being asked of her, and he knew, deep in his heart, that she had it within her to accept. With a new sense of purpose and Elias's unwavering support, Amara took the biggest leap of faith of her life. She accepted the position, the director of the Thorn Technologies Educational Initiative. The title, once a foreign concept, now felt like a second skin, a name for the part of her she had believed was lost forever. The fear was still there, a quiet murmur in the back of her mind, but it was now overshadowed by a powerful, surging wave of excitement and determination. She had a chance not just to reclaim her life, but to build something magnificent. The first few months were a whirlwind of activity. Elias, true to his word, had given her a blank canvas and an unlimited budget. Amara, with her master's degree and a lifetime of passion for teaching, was the artist. She moved with a grace and confidence that had been hidden for years under the uniform of a janitor. She designed the curriculum from the ground up, a progressive, child-centered approach that focused on creativity, critical thinking, and empathy. The core philosophy was simple. Every child has the potential for greatness, and it is the teacher's job to help them discover it. Her office, a bright, sun-drenched space with a view of a sprawling park, was soon covered in blueprints and educational journals. She hired a team of dedicated teachers, seeking out individuals who shared her passion and vision. She didn't just look at their resumes. She looked for the same spark she had seen in her own reflection when she taught Maya. She brought in educators who had been sidelined by a rigid system, brilliant minds who, like her, were waiting for a chance to shine. Maya, of course, was one of the first students. For Amara, seeing her daughter walk through the doors of the brand-new, on-site childcare and education center was an emotional milestone. The space, which Amara had named the Little Scholars Initiative, was everything she had envisioned. It was a vibrant, welcoming world of color, with walls painted in cheerful tones and large, sunny windows. There were bookshelves overflowing with books, learning stations filled with puzzles and art supplies, and a sprawling play area with soft mats and toys. It was the antithesis of the cold, corporate lobby where their lessons had begun, a powerful symbol of their new beginning. Maya thrived in this environment. She was a constant source of inspiration for Amara, a daily reminder of why she was doing all of this. Amara watched as her daughter, once shy and reserved, blossomed into a confident and curious little girl. She made friends, learned to read with ease, and ran to her mother at the end of each day with a new story or a new discovery. This program wasn't just for the children of Thorn Technologies. It was a testament to a mother's love and a promise fulfilled. Word of the initiative spread like wildfire through the company. Employees, initially skeptical of the new program, were soon singing its praises. They were amazed by the quality of the education and the palpable sense of care and community that Amara had cultivated. Parents could now work with a peace of mind they had never known before. They no longer had to worry about expensive daycare, long commutes, or the quality of their children's education. Amara's program was not just a perk, it was a game changer. It became a powerful retention tool, drawing in top talent who valued a company that invested so deeply in its people. Elias watched it all unfold with a quiet satisfaction. He had always been a man of numbers, but the success of the Little Scholars Initiative couldn't be measured in quarterly profits alone. He saw it in the smiles of the children, the grateful tears of the parents, and the renewed sense of purpose he saw in Amara every day. He had given her a chance, and she had taken it and built something far greater than he had ever imagined. He would often find himself walking through the halls of the initiative, a place that was once just an empty wing of his building. He would listen to the sound of children's laughter and the patient, gentle voice of a teacher reading a story. He would see Amara, in her element, her face alight with joy as she guided a group of children through a complex project. She was a natural leader, and her passion was infectious. The program exceeded all expectations. Enrollment grew, and the demand for places became so high that Amara began to design a plan to expand the initiative. Elias would often look at the program's success and remember the scene that had started it all, a mother and daughter on the floor of his lobby, teaching each other to read. It was a powerful reminder that the greatest innovations weren't always in technology or finance. Sometimes they were in the most human of places, born from a simple act of love and kindness. The secret he had discovered about Amara, her hidden brilliance and tragic past, had become the foundation for a new, better future for everyone at Thorn Technologies. The Little Scholars Initiative was more than just a successful program. It was a catalyst for profound change within Thorn Technologies. The company's culture, once defined by its relentless, numbers-driven ethos, began to soften and evolve. Elias Thorn, the distant, intimidating figure who had always been a name on an email and a face in a photo, was now viewed in a new, more human light. The transformation was not a top-down mandate. It was an organic shift that began with the heart of the company, its people. The positive impact of the initiative was felt on every floor, in every department. Employee morale, once a fragile metric, skyrocketed. Parents, relieved of the financial and logistical burdens of finding quality childcare, brought a renewed focus and energy to their work. They were no longer racing against the clock to pick up their children from a faraway daycare. They could take a break and walk down the hall to see their kids, sharing a quick hug or a story. This simple proximity fostered a sense of community that had never existed before. Employees, who might have only known each other by their titles, now bonded over their children's milestones, sharing stories of Maya's latest reading triumph or a classmate's first drawing. Amara, now a pivotal member of the leadership team, was the heart of this new culture. She moved through the company with the same quiet grace she had shown in the lobby, but now she was a recognized leader, an inspiration. She was a living testament to the company's new values. Her story, a testament to resilience and a second chance, became a powerful narrative that resonated with everyone. She wasn't just a director, she was a symbol of hope. Elias, in turn, found himself changing. He started his days not in his office, but in the Little Scholars Initiative. He would walk through the bright, colorful halls, listening to the joyful chaos of children at play. He'd watch Amara, in her element, her face alight with purpose as she guided her team. He was no longer just the CEO. He was a benefactor, a silent guardian of this new world he had helped create. He started talking to employees in the hallways, not about market shares or profit margins, but about their kids. He'd ask about their progress, their favorite activities, their favorite teachers. He was learning to be a leader of people, not just a commander of a corporation. The company's performance reflected this cultural shift. Productivity soared. Turnover rates plummeted. Thorne Technologies began to attract a new kind of talent, professionals who wanted to work for a company that valued them as whole people, not just as cogs in a machine. They wanted to be part of a place that understood that life and work were intertwined, and that supporting one meant strengthening the other. The company's reputation as a visionary leader in technology was now matched by its reputation as a pioneer in corporate responsibility. Elias, in his quiet moments of reflection, understood that the most impactful decision he had ever made wasn't a business deal or a strategic acquisition. It was seeing a woman and her daughter in a lonely lobby. He had once believed that success was a solitary pursuit, a mountain you climbed alone. Now, he saw that true success was about building a foundation for others to climb. It was about creating an environment where a brilliant educator didn't have to hide her talents, where a child could have a safe and loving place to learn, and where a company could be more than just a place of work. The Little Scholars Initiative wasn't just a feel-good program. It was a smart business decision. It proved that empathy and profitability were not mutually exclusive. Amara's vision and Elias's support had created a model that was both deeply human and incredibly effective. The company's culture shifted from a purely profit-driven model to one that prioritized its people, and in doing so, it became more profitable, more innovative, and more successful than ever before. The change was a beautiful, ongoing process. Amara's presence had been the first domino to fall, and the ripple effect was endless. From a late-night encounter in a quiet lobby to a company transformed from the inside out, the story of Thorne Technologies became a testament to the power of a single moment of kindness. Elias Thorne, once known for his ruthlessness, was now known for his compassion. And he knew, with a certainty he had never felt before, that this new legacy was far more valuable than any fortune he could ever amass. The professional relationship between Elias Thorne and Amara Johnson blossomed into a deep, abiding friendship built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Their late-night meetings in Elias's office, once tense and uncertain, became a nightly ritual of collaboration and vision. He was no longer just the CEO and she the director of a program. They were partners, two halves of a whole, united by a profound belief in the power of people and education. They discovered they had a shared passion for social impact, a desire to use their newfound influence for a greater good. The success of the Little Scholars Initiative had not been a final destination, but a launch pad for a bigger vision. They would spend hours in Elias's office, long after the rest of the building had gone quiet, brainstorming and dreaming. He would sketch out financial models on his whiteboard, while she would scribble down ideas for educational programs and community outreach. The Little Scholars Initiative is a great start, Amara said one evening, her eyes gleaming with an infectious energy. But it's just for our employees. What about all the other kids out there who need a chance? The ones who don't have a parent working at Thorne Technologies. Elias looked at her, a new kind of admiration in his gaze. She wasn't just content with her own success. She wanted to lift others with her. Her empathy was boundless. We can expand it, he mused, a flicker of his old, strategic brilliance returning, but now in service of a new cause. We can create a foundation, a non-profit arm of the company dedicated to education. And so, the Thorne Educational Foundation was born. Its mission was ambitious: to provide scholarships for underserved students and to build schools in low-income neighborhoods. Amara, with her deep understanding of educational needs, became the foundation's executive director, a role that fit her perfectly. She led the charge with a passion that was contagious, traveling to communities, meeting with local leaders, and tirelessly advocating for the children she was determined to help. Elias was the foundation's chief benefactor and strategic advisor. He leveraged his vast network, his financial acumen, and his influence to turn their shared vision into a reality. He found a new sense of purpose in these endeavors, a fulfillment he had never found in stock prices or market dominance. The numbers he now dealt with weren't about profit, but about impact. The number of students they had sent to college, the number of schools they had built, the number of lives they had changed. These were the metrics that truly mattered. The friendship between them grew stronger, with every successful project. They shared personal stories, their pasts no longer secrets, but a foundation for their bond. Elias would tell her about his own struggles as a young, ambitious kid from a working-class family, how he had fought his way to the top. She would share stories about her husband, his dreams of building beautiful buildings, and the love that had shaped her into the person she was today. The friendship was a beautiful, unexpected blend of professional partnership and personal connection. The world had begun to take notice. Thorne Technologies, once known for its groundbreaking tech, was now making headlines for its groundbreaking philanthropy. Elias was no longer just a billionaire CEO. He was a philanthropist, a mentor, and a visionary leader who had fundamentally changed his company's moral compass. The secret he had discovered about Amara had not only changed her life, but had also fundamentally changed him. She had shown him that true leadership wasn't about power or control, but about empathy and service. Amara, now a celebrated education leader, was a frequent speaker at conferences and an inspiration to many. She often spoke about the importance of second chances and the power of a single act of kindness. She would tell her story of being a janitor with a master's degree, of teaching her daughter to read in a cold lobby, and of a CEO who saw her not for her job title, but for her potential. Their work together was a powerful testament to their partnership. They were a dynamic team, her empathy and educational expertise complementing his strategic mind and business savvy. Their friendship, forged in the most unlikely of places, was the driving force behind a movement that was changing lives on a global scale. The late-night encounter in the empty lobby had been more than a simple meeting. It was the genesis of a powerful partnership, a beautiful friendship, and a shared legacy that was far greater than either of them could have ever imagined. Years had passed since the late-night encounter that had changed everything. The Thorne Technologies headquarters, once a cold monument to corporate ambition, now buzzed with a different kind of energy. The air was filled not just with the hum of servers and the quiet clicking of keyboards, but with the distant, joyful sound of children's laughter from the Little Scholars Initiative. The company, and the people within it, were unrecognizable from their former selves. Amara, now a celebrated education leader, was a frequent speaker at national conferences. She stood on stages, her voice resonating with a quiet authority and a deep well of experience. She spoke not just as an expert, but as a person who had lived through the very struggles her foundation was created to solve. Her story, a testament to resilience, a mother's love, and the power of a second chance, had become a source of hope for countless others. Her master's degree, once a forgotten piece of paper, was now a symbol of her profound impact. She no longer had to hide her brilliance. She wore it proudly, a beacon for others to follow. Maya, now a bright, confident teenager, was a shining example of the program's success. She was a top student, a budding artist, and a compassionate young woman who had inherited her mother's warmth and strength. She was the living embodiment of Amara's philosophy, that every child, given the right tools and a loving environment, could thrive. Maya's success was not just a personal victory for Amara. It was a powerful validation of the entire initiative, a testament to the fact that investing in people, especially in their earliest years, yielded a priceless return. She often spoke to her mother's students, telling them stories of learning her letters on the lobby floor, a humble beginning that had led to a life of unimaginable opportunity. And Elias Thorne, the billionaire CEO who had once been known for his ruthless efficiency, had undergone the most profound transformation of all. He was no longer just a businessman. He was a philanthropist, a mentor, and a friend. The cold, impenetrable facade he had built around himself had been dismantled, piece by piece, by the warmth of Amara's spirit and the joy of the children in the Little Scholars Initiative. He had learned that the most valuable asset a company could have was not its technology or its market share, but its people. He had learned that true wealth was not measured in dollars, but in the positive impact you had on the world. He would often visit the foundation's new headquarters, a beautiful, modern building that was a far cry from his sterile office. He'd watch Amara, now his trusted partner and dear friend, lead meetings, her passion a living force in the room. He saw how she had built a team that was as dedicated and empathetic as she was. He saw the schools they had built, the scholarships they had given, and the lives they had changed. He saw a legacy that was infinitely more meaningful than the one he had been on track to build. Their friendship had been a cornerstone of this new life. It was a friendship built on a shared vision, but also on a genuine, human connection. They would often reminisce about that first night, the late hour, the worn-out children's book. The moment that had seemed so insignificant at the time was now the genesis of a beautiful journey. It was a testament to the power of observation, of looking past a person's title and seeing their true potential. The story of Thorn Technologies, Amara, and Elias became a modern-day fable. It was a tale that proved that kindness, empathy, and a belief in one another could change the world. The happy ending was not a single event, but a continuous, beautiful process. It was the sound of children's laughter, the success of a brilliant educator, the transformation of a cynical CEO, and the creation of a foundation that was making a tangible difference in the world. The late-night encounter in the empty lobby had been more than a simple meeting. It was a profound collision of two different worlds that had, against all odds, created a new, better one. Elias had seen a secret in Amara's life, a hidden truth of her struggle and her strength. But in doing so, he had discovered a secret about himself, the capacity for compassion and the courage to build a world where everyone, regardless of their circumstances, had a chance to shine. And in that, he found his true purpose, his true happiness, and his greatest success of all.